Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into a case study on Wells Fargo, a company that made headlines for all the wrong reasons when it came to diversity, equity, and inclusion. In recent years, DE&I has become a hot topic, with companies across industries promising to make workplaces more inclusive. But when those promises fall flat or are revealed to be performative, the consequences can be severe. Wells Fargo's approach to DE&I, particularly its controversial diversity interview practices, is a perfect example of how not to execute a diversity and inclusion strategy. So, let's break it all down: what happened, why it failed, and what HR and business leaders can learn from it. Before we get started, I know fewer than 20% of my viewers are subscribed to the channel. It would be a great help if you subscribed. It's free, and it helps the channel grow. Subscribing is quicker than leaving a comment, but if you'd like to leave a comment and let me know what types of videos you'd like to see next, I'd love to hear what you think. Given today's video, let's hear a word from our friends at Exam Edge. Exam Edge specializes in realistic online practice tests with detailed feedback for every question. This means you're not just memorizing answers, you're actually mastering the material, which is key to acing your exam. One of their most popular categories is human resources, offering bundles of 1, 5, 10, or even 15 practice tests for certifications like the SHRM CP and PHR. Personally, I choose the 10 or 15 test bundle. You get more questions for a better rate and even bonus freebies. What sets them apart for me is the unlimited access to unique questions. With over 1,300 for the SHRM CP alone, you'll be well prepared and confident for exam day. Ready to take your prep to the next level? Visit the links in the description box below depending on which test you're studying for, and use the code SHIRLEY10 at checkout. That is SHIRLEY10 at checkout to save 10% on your order. By using my links, you'll not only save money, but also support this channel. Let me know in the comments if you've tried Exam Edge or have any questions. Happy studying! Like many large corporations, Wells Fargo publicly committed to increasing diversity within its workforce, especially in leadership positions. In the wake of George Floyd's murder in 2020, the company, under CEO Charles SHRM, pledged to improve racial equity. SHRM even went as far as saying that the bank would work to ensure that diverse candidates were considered for job opportunities, a commitment that appeared promising at the time. To demonstrate their commitment, Wells Fargo implemented a hiring policy that required managers to interview at least one diverse candidate for many open positions. On the surface, this seemed like a meaningful step. However, the reality of how this policy was executed told a very different story. In 2022, a New York Times investigation revealed that Wells Fargo was conducting fake diversity interviews. According to whistleblower reports from former employees, hiring managers were interviewing diverse candidates for positions that had already been filled. Essentially, the interviews were conducted just to meet the diversity quotas set by company policy, with no real intention of hiring the candidates. Former Wells Fargo employees described this practice as a sham, saying that they were pressured to comply with the fake interview policy to make the company look good on paper. For the candidates, many of whom were women or people of color, the process was nothing more than an illusion of opportunity. Rather than opening doors for underrepresented groups, the policy served as a PR move that ultimately did more harm than good. When the news broke, Wells Fargo faced intense scrutiny from both the public and government officials. The scandal reignited concerns about the company's past discriminatory practices, such as its 2020 settlement with the U.S. Department of Labor for allegedly discriminating against Black job applicants. The revelation also led to legal and reputational consequences. Several civil rights groups condemned the bank, calling for accountability and systemic change within the organization. The company launched an internal review, and SHRM issued a statement claiming that they were unaware of the fraudulent interview practices. However, for many, the damage was already done. Employees and consumers alike saw the bank's DEI efforts as hollow, further eroding trust in an institution already plagued by past scandals, including its infamous fake accounts controversy. Wells Fargo's DE&I approach failed for several reasons. The biggest issue was that the bank's diversity efforts appeared performative rather than authentic. Implementing a policy without real intent to hire diverse candidates turned the initiative into a meaningless checkbox exercise. Issue number 2 was pressure without a purpose. By setting diversity quotas for interviews without holding hiring managers accountable for actual hiring decisions, Wells Fargo created a system where managers felt compelled to game the system rather than work toward true inclusivity. Across the organization, there was a failure to address systemic issues, as the company attempted to increase diversity without addressing systemic barriers within its hiring and promotion practices. Without real structural changes, no amount of interviews could fix an inherently flawed system. And finally, broken trust. Diversity candidates who participated in these fake interviews were likely left feeling frustrated and disillusioned, further discouraging them from engaging with the company in the future. This betrayal of trust not only impacted external candidates, but also hurt internal employee morale. For HR professionals and business leaders, this case study is a cautionary tale about what happens when diversity and inclusion are treated as a PR stunt rather than a genuine effort. Here are key takeaways. Number 1. Transparency and accountability matter. If a company is serious about diversity, it must be transparent in its hiring processes and hold leaders accountable for meaningful outcomes, not just optics. 2. Diversity, equity, and inclusion should be more than a quota. Policies that focus solely on hitting numerical targets without cultural and systemic change will fail. It's essential to create pathways for diverse candidates to advance, not just to be interviewed. Genuine leadership commitment is key. If executives are not personally invested in diversity efforts, employees will see right through it. Leadership must be actively involved in fostering an inclusive workplace, rather than just setting arbitrary mandates. And finally, internal audits and feedback loops are critical. Companies should regularly audit their diversity efforts and listen to employees to ensure that policies are effective and ethical. The Wells Fargo case is a stark reminder that performative diversity, equity, and inclusion does more harm than good. Instead of creating opportunities for marginalized groups, bad faith diversity policies can reinforce exclusion, erode trust, and damage a company's reputation. The lesson here is clear. Diversity and inclusion must be rooted in authenticity, accountability, and real action, not just empty promises. What do you think about Wells Fargo's failure? Do you believe the company has taken enough steps to rebuild trust? Let's continue the conversation in the comments. And if you found this case study insightful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for our next deep dive into corporate diversity, equity, and inclusion challenges. See you next time.